Alrighty. So today we have another book talk. Well, today we have There Will Come Soft Rains by Mr. Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury is...
This is the second Ray Bradbury
book
we've I think it's a work.
that we've covered on the podcast.
Yeah.
I've read a few separately. My favorite is probably Dandelion Wine by Mr. Bradbury.
Mm-hmm.
I've also read Something Wicked This Way Comes, and we also discussed Fahrenheit 451.
Right.
Ray Bradbury is known for his short stories, and that's where I find myself mostly reading him.
Yeah.
My favorite is The Foghorn, which I think we should discuss on the podcast sometime. It's only 13 pages, but it's pretty powerful.
Well, to be fair, this one's only 6, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I worry that the readers will think this is a bit of a cop-out. It's not. It's an incredible work. I think it's neat. I'm not sure I can derive a whole lot of...
meaning from?
No, but I think it's cool. I like the idea of it.
It can be considered sad if you look at it in the right way.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. I would consider it a fun read too.
It's worth noting that I read mine in a collection of short stories called the Martian Chronicles, and they're formatted in a way that makes me think that all these short stories are part of one bigger...
They are.
Okay.
They are. There's multiple Martian Chronicles, but...
Right.
Bradbury has been called the master of the American short story, and boy is he. He can write a short story in a way I think few others can.
Yeah, and that's quite admirable. When I'm told to write a fictional essay in English, I have the urge to provide all this context and really flesh out things.
It really shouldn't. It should just be a glimpse of a larger story.
Right, and Bradbury masters that wonderfully.
He understands that, yes.
He sets up a scene, he does something interesting with the scene, and then he seems to destroy it pretty quickly. And that's pretty neat. It's got a nice twist to it.
Yeah, so in the story, it starts out you see a house.
Yeah.
And the house is pretty smart.
It's mechanical. It's
automated.
automated.
Mechanical house. Basically, he goes through one day in the story. Starts out in the morning. I think alarms go off. Breakfast is being made. It's all automatic.
Yeah.
I think like the toast comes in, the eggs go on the stove, you hear the sizzling. And in the story, it's very visceral. He lays out in great detail. Might not be in great detail, but the detail he does give illustrates it.
For it to be a 6-page short story.
Yeah. You really feel like you're there.
You do.
Throughout the day, though, you're like, oh, okay, they live. It's almost like a Jetson feel to it. They live in this automatic house. That's cool.
Yeah.
Mechanical house. Then you realize something's not quite right. He says throughout the day, I think by 11, the eggs are dry and the toast is stale.
Where are the people? Why aren't they eating?
The people aren't here.
Yeah. Hold on, there is something I wanted to note for the more technologically informed listeners. It mentions relays and fuses. Those are analog devices. And in the story, it takes place in August of 2026, I believe.
Coming up.
Right, coming up. And right now, by far, the dominant force within electronics is digital circuits. But at the time, digital circuits didn't exist. At the time of writing the book, they were all analog electronics. And it's kind of neat to see the...
Well, Ethan, he was doing the best he could.
I know. For not being an electrical engineer, there's a bit of an anachronism. We don't use analog electronics really much anymore. We'd use digital electronics. And
by the time of him writing this, that was not even...
The standard was analog electronics. And I just think it's kind of neat how the house operates purely off of analog electronics. Yet, if a house similar to this was constructed nowadays, it would all be digital electronics.
Yeah, absolutely.
But go ahead. Sorry, not to cut you off.
No, but
I just thought that was neat.
It is neat. And reading older literature, you see that a lot. Things that, especially older science fiction literature.
Yeah, and when they try to project into the future.
Yeah, and when the future is now, or like in this book, relatively close to now, that comparison is much more drastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so throughout the day, different things happen. You see little mice come out and clean the carpet, which I thought was neat.
That was cute. Their whiskers with the brushes.
Yes. Today we also have vacuums that are robotic and basically do the same thing, but are bigger in scale. Yeah. But still the same concept.
It's cute, yeah. And they made noises like they had emotion too.
Yeah.
It's cute.
Yeah. The dog's inside the house too.
Yeah. So, a note. We don't have humans.
No.
We have a dog.
A dog's here. I'm like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Maybe the humans are out and about.
Yeah.
On vacation.
Then we go outside, and everything's a wasteland.
Yeah. Nuclear.
So, a nuclear wasteland. First, we don't know it's a nuclear wasteland.
Yeah.
I think this is the story. There's a greenish hue.
Yeah.
But we see the yard's manicured.
Mm-hmm.
There's toys. There's a lawnmower. And then it shows onto the side of the house, and there's a bunch of shadows of humans painted on the side of the house.
Charred bodies.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
For those of you who do not know, that actually happened.
Yeah.
In the bombings at Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II, the heat was so intense that it literally
just vaporized
people, and their shadows were seared onto the ground or onto walls.
Mm-hmm. And that is the only hint in the story, really, of anything nuclear happening.
Nuclear, but it's horrific when not only horrific, but it's eerie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and you finally realize, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah.
They didn't have time to get into the house. I thought it was interesting why their house survived, though. Mm-hmm. Why do you think their house survived? Was it designed for that?
I think it's a short story, and it really doesn't have to.
I know, but just thinking about that, I know it's used as you can use it in symbolic sense too, which I'll talk about later.
If I had to put a definitive answer to it, I think I would say that the nuclear blast was very strong and it vaporized humans, but these houses are made out of some sort of material that's
all
nuclear.
The other houses were.
I'm getting there. They're made out of some nuclear blast resistant material, mm-hmm. and they withstood the nuclear blast. But later, fire came by and took the houses, and for whatever reason, this house just never caught on fire. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know. I know it's a stretch, but...
Yeah, but I think that's kind of what short stories are meant to do also,
right.
Is to make the reader kind of think what else happened here.
Right.
Like I said earlier, it could be a little snippet of a much larger story. But yes, of course, I think Bradbury this story you said earlier might not be that symbolic, but I think you can gain some symbolism from it too, which we'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. So we go inside again, and throughout the day, different stuff happens. I'm kind of blanking at this point here, but how does the fire start exactly?
Well, okay, so we've skipped a bunch here. We went outside, right? Mm-hmm. The dog went outside, plays around, uses the bathroom, whatever. Comes back inside, tracks dirt in the house.
Yes.
And the mice are pissed off at this, right? He's tracked dirt in the house after they've already cleaned, so they clean up, and the house being automated. Mm-hmm. Brings out a bridge table, and for those who don't know, bridge was a very popular
game at the time.
Board game, I guess, and prepares beverages and foods for expecting guests, but they never come. Yeah. So the house kind of whines at this.
The house does have a lot of emotion in the story.
It does. And you know what? I'll apply some symbolism to this. My family has not always lived in the house that we currently live in. And when we moved houses, I was very young at the time. I was pretty sad because I grew up there. Mm-hmm. And my parents said that it was sad, yes, but we took care of the house and it took care of us. That if you took care of something, it would take care of you back. And we were leaving it now, but the new owners would take care of it and it would take care of them. Mm-hmm. And that provided some closure to little me. But I kind of want to apply that to the story. I'm sure that its owners took care of the house.
Yeah.
And it took care of them back.
It did, and, to kind of see what's left after everything else goes, I think it's a very lonely book, or a short story, because you see it's the only thing left.
Yeah. Seemingly
anywhere that we know of, that we can see.
Yeah.
And it's not going to last long, but while it's there, it's carrying out what it always did.
Right.
And as the story progresses later, I'll talk about that a little bit more. But right now, yes, the house is...
It's going through its emotions.
It's going through its emotions. It's upset.
It makes dinner, puts it away, and eventually it starts playing a tune for its guests to fall asleep. Well, it asks out loud, what tune would you like to listen to today, or what lullaby or story, and it doesn't hear a response, and it waits a pretty long time,
Yeah.
and it says, okay, based off you not responding, I'll just play your favorite, and it plays it, and it kind of goes through it, and like Luke said, house catches on fire, right?
Yeah.
And
I forget how it catches on fire. What does it say?
it doesn't really say.
That's kind of confusing
It's
because
just-
I've read it 2 or 3 times.
Right.
Most people read it in school. I think I read it in 8th grade.
I never read it.
Again in 10th grade. And then today I listened to the audio book. But you know how trying to listen to an audio book in school, if you don't listen for 10 seconds, you miss something.
Yeah.
So I didn't really catch how it started, but I don't think it really says.
It doesn't really say. It seems kind of spontaneous.
That's what I was
But
wondering.
the house does detect that there's a fire, and it tries to suffocate it.
There's these little green snakes that come out of I think it's the ceiling, right? And they have this green foam
Right.
coming from their mouth.
Obviously, fire cannot burn without oxygen,
Yeah.
so it tries to remove all the oxygen from the environment.
And it says the snakes are trying to eat the fire, basically, which I thought was cool.
And it's not successful, to be blunt. And the story even mentions how all the windows close in to try to block out any oxygen from getting in that way. The house is struggling. You
Yeah,
can really
it's
imagine it just squeezing, shutting,
It's fighting.
closing up.
And then the fire gets
fighting.
outside,
Yeah, it's hanging on.
and it comes onto the roof, and then
At that point, it's all over.
The walls start collapsing, and then
Right.
there's nothing left.
The house starts trying to make food again. It starts making bacon, toast.
It's
and
everything
it does
it
it
can.
even
It's-
larger proportions too.
Yeah.
It's really trying to hang on, but it can't.
And I actually think that's a lot of symbolism to it.
It does.
Something that can never come back again, and it's trying its hardest to maintain that normalcy.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times life in certain situations can happen, and for a while there, everybody tries to act like it's not really happening,
But
and everything's normal, and it's kind of going on, but you can't do that. It's happening, and at this point, we see the house is going on, kind of trying to provide what it always did. But everything in the world has literally changed. And for a while it did it, but then eventually those
can't.
outside forces became so controlling
Right.
that it had to kind of accept its fate and go along with everything else. But
And I say at the beginning of the story, there's not much symbolism. There is symbolism, I think.
if you look at it, you can digest. I think most of the time I've read it, I've just read it as a good story. But
Yeah.
there's a kind of a lonely ship in the night feel to it,
Yeah.
and the last thing left, and then it's gone.
Right. Very
But
nostalgic.
nostalgic. Bradbury stories are very nostalgic, and I think we should read the Foghorn next, in the next few weeks, because
Yeah.
it's that story. I read it at night near the beach in Florida, and once we talk about the story, you understand. But it was very nostalgic and sentimental, and Bradbury does a great job
Right. He does.
doing that.
He really does.
Absolutely.
To look back, Fahrenheit 451 was very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. And you haven't read the book, but Dandelion Wine might be one of my favorite books I've ever read. It's about a summer in a small town, but it's a summer everybody kind of grew up.
Yeah.
And, in one part of Dandelion Wine, which I think we should read someday, the trolley systems. Small towns used to have trolleys. And I know the last day of summer,
Not our town.
not our town, but a lot of these towns, especially in the Midwest and the North, they had trolley systems. And all the kids drive the trolleys. And during Dandelion Wine, the trolley system is shutting down. And all the kids ride it one last time. And the next day, they tar over the tracks and they bring in buses. So Ray Bradbury illustrates the passing of time, I think, better than anybody does.
Yeah.
Almost that sense of something that's happening that you can never get back. He illustrates it perfectly. And his prose are beautiful. The way he writes is great. I'm a huge fan of Bradbury.
I do think I would enjoy Dandelion Wine. And
Yeah.
I think I'll see if I can check it out from the library.
You should, absolutely. It's great.
This is our second work we've done by Ray Bradbury, and I think it's the shortest work that we've done.
Yeah.
And I was kind of conflicted to do a work this short, A, because obviously we don't have much to talk about,
No.
and B, because I worry that the listeners will feel it's a cop-out. I promise you it's not. This is a work that we're interested in,
Oh, absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
yes, we are struggling to talk about it for an extended period of time.
I don't think so.
Not struggling, but we're not gonna get 45 minutes out of it, right?
No, absolutely not.
And our episodes don't necessarily have to be lengthy. We try to uphold them to a very high quality. But I don't know. Let us know if you'd like to hear more short stories. We
could do short stories in a bundle.
That's what I was thinking,
Do
and
3
maybe
or 4.
doing maybe the collection, right? How There Comes Soft James's collection of is part of the Martian Chronicles collection. I think that might be a better.
Instead of going
compromise.
through each story individually,
Pick
talk
out our
about the
favorite ones.
favorite
maybe.
one, or do more of an overtone of the whole story.
Right.
What we gain from it.
And that might be something we can come back to in the future.
But yeah, I think doing shorter works is actually better. We tried to cover, or we did cover, the Grapes of Wrath, and a story that scope and magnitude, to go play by play
It was very challenging.
It's very challenging.
And what we ended up doing is we spent almost an hour on the first chapter.
Yeah, and
then we had to speed through it.
Speed through the rest of the book. When you have a shorter story like this, you can really go play by play what happens, and then you can digest and really analyze each part of the book and talk about its deeper meanings. And it's much easier to digest its deeper meanings when the story is that short.
Right.
But yeah, Ray Bradbury has many short story collections. Twice 22 is one of his best. I've read it, I think, 2 times. It's great.
Twice 22 twice.
22 twice, yeah. But in Twice 22, there's actually 2 different short story collections put into one.
Okay.
But yeah, I recommend it. Check out Ray Bradbury, everybody. Yeah. We've talked before about Ray Bradbury, but he's great when you talk about him again. Yeah. So.
And just to cap it off, what are you reading right now, Luke?
What am I reading right now? I've just started Gone with the Wind. And for the next month, when asked what am I reading right now, that's probably what I'll say, because it is 1,400 pages long.
Okay.
But I've always heard about it. It's one of the great American novels. Everybody loves the movie. So I got down to McKay's, and I'm getting through it right now. Yeah. So far, I'm only about 20 pages in, but I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
Right now, I'm reading Atomic Habits. It's a nonfiction book. It's a self-help book. It's about becoming better one day at a time. But I'm looking for a nonfiction book to read. But I'm thinking about reading Dandelion Wine. Or maybe The Sun by Lois Lowry. I've read the other books in the Giver series. I've just yet to read that one. So it is something I need to tackle. It's a bit longer. I won't say 500 pages. So, yeah, I'm still trying to decide. I think I'll probably get through Atomic Habits first. And I haven't told you this, Luke, but I haven't read Dune yet, right?
Oh.
And
well, oh my gosh, he needs to read Dune.
Especially with Dune 2 coming out pretty soon. I need to read Dune, and then I need to watch the movie, and then I need to watch the second one.
I think you'd absolutely love Dune. I can't believe you haven't seen it. I haven't read it.
I would love Dune, and you know what's really crappy? I bought a copy of the book almost 2 years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah.
You said you were going to start it that night, and you never did.
I never did.
I think that's when I was reading it, and I was telling you about it.
No, you read it in October, I think, of that year.
Okay,
and
that's right.
I bought my book in April, the beginning of April into March.
Okay, because I remember...
I bought it on the FBLA field trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I remember I read it. It took me like 2 weeks to read it, and I finished it the night before I went to go see the movie. So I remember talking about it. I was going to read it, or I was reading it.
We talked about it extensively.
Yeah.
And you were really excited for it. And that type of nonfiction is right up my alley. That is my genre. I love that. But I just haven't read it yet. And
well, go read it. We can talk about it.
Yes.
I would love to reread it.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed it. I think it would really benefit from a reread. Because I was younger too, but the first read, you're like, huh? And as you get through the story, it starts making a lot more sense. You understand the world and what's happening. Right. But for a little while there, it's not really confusing, but you're a little bit hesitant to fully commit. But once you do, it's great.
Right.
And I think a reread of it before continuing on with the rest of the series, because you could do the rest of the series too, Ethan. Dune Messiah, God Emperor of Dune.
And that's why I'm hesitant to start it, because if I read the first one, I'm pretty sure I want to read the rest of them, and that's a huge economic impact because they're expensive books.
Well, I mean, yeah, but you can get deals and go to the library and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. But with a series like that, I think I would want to own it, you know?
Yeah, that's true. But hey, Christmas is coming up, so
that's true.
Read the first one now, and if you like it, ask old Santa Claus for the rest of them.
That's right.
But everybody, that was a Ray Bradbury short story.
Yeah.
Another great one. And I really enjoyed reading it.
If any listener has any suggestions for a future book or a future short story, let us know. We're not opposed to doing short stories or
No.
even longer books, despite what we said earlier. We've did anything from the Goats of Wrath. We've did Bobach.
It's just the way we covered the longer books
Right.
I would change.
We
We still like to read them.
Yeah,
so.
I think maybe instead of narrating it, maybe we should just
The parts that we thought were important and then talk about
that might be a better way to do it.
But yeah, so thank y'all for listening.
Yeah, thank y'all.